between 50 and 60% of Israeli round A tech startups don't reach round B. The implication here is usually that they didn't hire the right salesperson, the right sales leader. We call this business mission critical, this type of hire. Because if you get it wrong, then you become part of the 50, 60% statistics. And our mission at CQ Global is to get it right.
Hi folks, James here, and welcome to the Spiro Circle. I hear so many stories about how founders go from ideation to early days of product, building the team, and then either raising more money or going public or being acquired by a larger company. But very rarely do I hear a specific part of that story, which is the jump from early days in Israel to the leap towards revenue and sales in America. Now, I hear about it in a very abstract way. Oh, we're going to go to America. We're going to expand our team. But there's a real moment where founders have to embrace the fact that they're going to hire someone who's going to basically lead that part of the journey. It's the VP of sales. I spoke to someone today who talks all about this. Giora Gil-Ad runs CQ Global, and they're a headhunting company that basically tries to match the perfect VP of sales with the perfect founder here in Israel. And it's a really delicate and important part of the startup journey. The wrong hire can ruin revenues, lower morale, and kind of question the CEO and his ability to make decisions. But the right hire can blast the company off to places it never thought it would go. Anyway, it was a really long and interesting conversation, and we touched on many different areas, so I hope you enjoy. Giora, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you very much for having me, James.
We are speaking at a very interesting point of the growth of a company. And so I speak to people on this show and in my past, in other professions, I speak to the founder and I speak at the very early stage of companies and development and products, but where you folks come in is at a very specific point of that company journey. And it's not really one that I've had much experience in dissecting. So I'm very much looking forward to speaking with you today about some of this. You operate in a very specific niche, CQ Global. It's helping Israeli tech companies expand into the US by hiring the real sales exec. So,
Exactly.
It sounds narrow, but actually it has huge implications and ramifications if it's not done correctly and if it's not done right. It's a very delicate process in that journey. So I want to ask you, kind of the first question I have for you basically is, why is this the hire that tends to make or break a company in this journey? And then we'll dive into all the things that you folks do and how you do it.
So I think that's one of the most important questions, and to answer that, first of all, I want to share a statistic with you that I'm not sure that many people know. Between 50 and 60% of Israeli round A tech startups don't reach round B. Between 50 and 60%. By the way, US startups is even higher. Somewhere around 70% don't reach round B. But we're looking at the Israeli tech ecosystem. So between 50 and 60% don't reach round B. The main reason for that is that they don't generate enough revenue in those first, 2-3 years when they're with their round A, and they shut down. They don't get to the round B. And I think the implication here is usually that they didn't hire the right salesperson, the right sales leader to generate that initial round, to generate that initial revenue stream, and to drive them and help them grow. And I think we all understand that we call this business mission critical, this type of hire, because if you get it wrong, then you become part of the 50, 60% statistics. And our mission at CQ Global is to get it right. And on that note, we've put together something that we call consultative search. We'll dive into that probably a little later, but we try to bring something that is wider than just finding that right person, which in itself is a serious challenge. We want to help these round A founders, CEOs along their journey.
Wow. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. There are so many different areas to explore in that point of the journey, because it's one of the reasons why I find it so interesting is, and you mentioned it just now, it's this kind of tipping point, right? It's like from Series A to Series B, it's that jump that half of companies don't achieve, and there are ways that is successful, and like you said, it's the correct hire and making sure it's a cultural fit and making sure it's the person's capable and all of that. There's also kind of luck of the market, but there's also and it seems quite interesting, like the psychological mindset of the founder, who typically is usually the CEO, or one of the founders or co-founders is the CEO, and it's kind of like a letting go, right? It's like it signals not just the growth of a company, but the change of mindset in the founder. Is that something that you've thought about, or is that something that you folks consider, or what can you tell me about that side of things?
We see that almost with every search project that we're in. We see the CEO, which is, as you mentioned, usually the founder. We see them needing to give somebody else the keys to the kingdom. And in order to give somebody else the keys to the kingdom, to let them drive the sales and be focused on what a CEO needs to be focused on, which is investors, product market fit, go-to-market strategy, things like that. It's a difficult challenge for them. Not everybody knows how to let go. It's part of leadership. It's part of letting people manage their business, and it's a challenge that we see. I think the CEOs and the founders understand that in order to bring the talents that they want to bring, in order to let them do what they want them to do, they have to let go. But it's a psychological aspect that needs to be worked on and needs to be discussed. And sometimes we see them interfering in a way that that doesn't support their business needs, and at the end doesn't come out positively. But I think there's an understanding amongst today's founders and CEOs that when they get the right person, and again we're going back to this: is this the right person? Can I trust them? Do they have the depth and the capability and the experience to really make that difference that I need to make? I can tell you that in one of the recent projects we worked with, the CEO told us, listen, I'm not good at sales. I have to do it because I'm the founder, but I'm not good at it. I need somebody that's their profession, that can take my company from 10 million ARR to 25 million ARR. I won't be able to do that, but I need to let go. So bring me somebody. The ask was, bring me a CRO that I can let go and give him the keys to the kingdom. Give them, him or her, the keys to the kingdom. So yes, I think most of these folks, the founders, they want that right person, and they'll give them the keys to the kingdom.
Yeah, it's so interesting, and that's a very mature insight that they have, because as we've established, a lot of the founders or co-founders, usually the first CEO is one of the founders, and a lot of the times, in my experience, at least from what I've seen, a lot of the times the CEO is like a techie coder, or he's like a very like data, or he or she a very data guy, coding person, and even before the jump to the States for the sales exec journey that we're outlining, even sometimes it's just, whether or not that person's the right CEO to grow the company. And a lot of times the first CEO, who is one of the co-founders, doesn't remain the CEO throughout the life cycle of the company. And I can think of probably one example off the top of my head where that's not the case, which is Mark Zuckerberg with Meta. He's remained the kind of top dog the whole time, which it is unusual. And I think there were some growing pains there when we saw the company grow and how he had to grow along with it. Do you see there being any ego involved in this process? Or do you find that the founders of today are a bit more in tune with the needs of the company and their own abilities?
I get the feeling from the many projects that we're dealing with today and in the past in the US, that the founders understand their mission. They've received an initial investment. It can range anywhere from 10 to 20 to $30 million, plus minus on a round A. They have responsibility towards their investors, towards their board of directors. They have responsibility to their employees, and I think they understand the nature of the mission. Many of these people are product people. Many of these people, as you mentioned, are technological people that have a great idea, and they want to take it forward. They want to take it to the market, to the U.S. market, which in itself is a very challenging market, right? I mean, when you look at the cyber world, the average CISO gets probably 50 emails a day from people who want to sell him some sort of cyber solution. So just think about how you crack that first layer of getting to that CISO. And if we're talking about Fortune 500 or Fortune 5,000 companies, then how do you do that? So I think to answer your question, I think they understand their mission. I think they understand their responsibility. They bring a lot of understanding on the product side. Sometimes, on the global, crossing the Atlantic, cultural leadership aspect, they learn by making mistakes. One of the things that we try to do is help them not make mistakes that you can, that you can avoid. Mistakes that
Do you
we've
mean
already
mistakes?
seen.
Do you mean mistakes in terms of business, or mistakes in terms of culture, or in terms of
Well,
what was
it's
it?
sort of intertwined, because the business and the culture and the people aspect of hiring those initial, be it a VP sales, a CRO, account enterprise sales executive, it's sort of interwound into one mission. And the mission is simple. The mission is, we need to reach the target. The investors have put together usually an aggressive revenue target. Okay, they want to see, the investors, they would like to see 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8x on their investment. They put together an aggressive plan. The go-to-market's not 100% ready. The product market fit is not 100% ready. And now you have to bundle up that with the Israeli culture, connected to the American culture, to the sales culture, to the business culture, and bring on somebody who can make the play, who has the playbook to succeed. So I think when you look at it from our perspective, it's sort of interwound, and that's one of the reasons, by the way, that we focus on the business aspects of headhunting, in order to, because of the fact that we understand this bundle, and we want to help them through it in the best way.
So talk us through that process then. So talk us through what you folks are doing exactly at CQ Global, and how you mesh all of that together. So what are you folks doing that no other headhunting system or process is achieving?
So I think the first thing that is important to us is that we don't see this as a transactional relationship. We're here to help these people attain their goals and their revenue targets and reach that round B and scale and succeed. That's what we're here for. That's what we'd like to do. And I think the difference between what we do and what maybe other folks do is that we come into this as a consultancy. We sit down and we look at what are the targets? What are the business aspects? Where's the product? Is it really ready? Is the go-to-market ready to be presented to customers? Is the product market fit 100%? Are the targets attainable? Okay, there's a lot to be said about the targets themselves. Okay, and so we come to these projects and we sit down with our customers, and first of all, we do almost a SWOT. We call it trying to get inside of their heads. And once we're inside of their heads and we've attained that level of understanding of where they're taking this company, then we help them understand what type of people they need. I can tell you that I sat across from a founder who told me he needs a CRO. I said, okay, let's sit down and understand where you're taking this business. At the end of an hour, I told him, you don't need a CRO. you have a target of $2.5 million. You need a certain amount of companies, of Fortune 5,000 companies. That's a strong, hungry hunter, enterprise sales executive. It'll cost you less. It'll be more focused. And that CRO that you need, that's 2 years down the road. And he looked at me and he said, well, don't you want to make more money? I said, yeah, but I want you to succeed. And if you take on a CRO now, it just won't be a fit. It'll be from both sides. So that's the kind of thing that we do. The second aspect, once we're starting to work, is that we target the top 10% of sales people in the US. It's very difficult to find those top 10%. There's thousands of companies vying for them. I would venture to say that there's a talent war going on in each different vertical. There's thousands of companies looking for those top 10%. These people are getting reach outs, maybe 5, 10 a week from headhunters, and they don't want to respond to them all. Some of them don't respond at all. I can share with you that our response rate at CQ Global for these types of positions is usually somewhere between 50 and 65%, which is very high. And it gives us a good, strong pool of people, of potential candidates to work with. And once we've targeted them and engaged with them, it's all about understanding, are they the real deal, yes or no? Because these people know how to interview, they know how to talk, they know how to sell themselves. And we try to drill down and really understand what the value proposition is on the business side, what the motivation is for considering this play. Remember, these people aren't looking to make a move. They're not answering an advertisement. We've targeted them and gotten them to come to an initial interview. And my team, which is a really amazing group of people, are highly adept at drilling down and understanding what the motivation is and what the proposition, the value proposition is. And once we've qualified them, they're usually really a good fit for our customers' needs and challenges and targets. So I think when you put all of that together, there's a different kind of buzz around what we do, or a different kind of result. To that, we've added, the people business is a lot about gut feeling, right? It's about chemistry. It's about gut feeling, and we've tried to take this to a bit more of a scientific level. So we've added some assessments, some behavioral assessments that we work on with one of the leading U.S. companies in assessment, which gives our customers a view that most people don't have, because most people will rely on the interview. The interview has a 0.38% average forecasting success, which is low, right? I mean, you can toss a coin, you have 50%. So the interview that people may do that is quite low. When you put together a certain amount of interviews that are structured, you raise the bar. To that, you add background checks, you add assessments, behavioral assessments, and you're getting a strong picture. And I think we bring an all-around very strong picture so that our customers can make the right decisions and hire the right candidates.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you. How do you compete from here over there? Do you have, is your team split up in different places? Because you mentioned it's like a lot of people are vying for a lot of talent. What are you doing from here that's helping you succeed over there and bridging
So
that gap?
that's a very interesting question. I think that we've learned that over time, we've learned that it doesn't really matter where you are in the world. It matters what type of experience, depth, and capabilities you bring. My team is comprised of people that have lived around the world. Today, they're all in Israel. Some of them are what we call olim chadashim, new immigrants to Israel. Some of them have been here for many years, but they've all grown up around the world in the US. We call it, we like to say they know how to speak American, which is a different language from English, because 70% of our business plus minus is in the US. And so I think that their knowledge, their experience, and their depth is really what makes a difference. But to your question, some of our competition is local U.S. headhunting companies, and some of them are really good at what they do. The main difference is understanding that Israeli culture and how to put it together with the American DNA. I can tell
So
you
yeah,
that
let's talk about that, because that you're leading me right into my points now, and I'm interested in how this is meshing, because on paper it's great, but it can be sometimes complete chaos, right? Meshing these two Israeli cultures and American cultures.
it is a serious challenge, and I can tell you from our perspective, when we look at our competition, I can tell you that one of the leading U.S. headhunting firms, really one of the top three firms today in the U.S. One of our customers was working with them in the past, and she decided, the VPHR decided that she wants to work with us on a VP sales position. And I said to her, "Wow, this is really, I mean, I'm impressed. You've worked with one of the top three companies in the U.S. and you're coming to us. So tell me why." And she gave me a really interesting answer. She said, "They presented some good candidates, but none of them fit the Israeli culture. None of them could work with the founder. None of them have that spirit, that DNA that we're looking for." And I think that's the main difference, because there are companies that do great work around the world in the US, similar to what we do. But I think when the Israeli founder decides to work with us, one of the main reasons is because he understands that we can translate that culture slash DNA. And it's one of the major issues in finding the right people. We need to remember that all the time, because you can be really great, a US enterprise sales executive or VP. But if you don't understand the Israeli culture, if you don't accept that the CEO at 11 at night will call you and tell you things that directly to your face that maybe somebody else wouldn't, if you don't understand the pace that the Israeli founders want to work in, then you're not a good fit. And so that cultural fit is really something that we work on. We really try to make sure that the candidates that we're presenting to our customers have both the experience, the professional depth, we call it, to make it happen, and that cultural DNA fit. And a lot of the decisions are made on the cultural DNA fit. So it's a critical issue.
Well, I kind of want to invert it, if I may, because, and I want to push back slightly, because you're emphasizing the cultural fit for the American hire to fit in with the, let's just say, specific DNA of an Israeli founder. Do you invert that in any way? Is there any way that is there any time where that breaks down, where it doesn't, where the Israeli founder or the culture may miss an opportunity because of a very specific directness, relationship, all the things that we know and love about Startup Nation? Is there any way that you tailor it the other way and kind of help them adapt to obtain the talent they need? Because maybe the talent they need is the person in America who may not react so well to the chutzpah, let's say. But do you do any kind of training in that sense, or guidance?
No, we put a lot of emphasis on that, and we try to help the CEOs understand that it's not 1 and 0 here. It's not that the US VP has to now become an Israeli from the kibbutz, and that's it. The Israeli side of the equation means that you need to understand the U.S. culture and what's important to them. You can't. It's not. If you don't do that, by the way, then usually you'll fail, and you'll fail big time. I can tell you a hiring manager that interviewed a candidate for a senior executive role, and he said to him during the interview, he said, "Why don't you convince me why I should hire you?" Now, I could argue with you that that's not a good statement to say to anybody. But in Israel, you'll see people hiring engineers or product managers or whatever, and they'll ask them that question. Say, well, why should I hire you? Convince me. When you cross the Atlantic, you need to delete that question. First of all, the answer is, I didn't come to you. You sent a headhunting firm to me. So why should I convince you? You convinced me. And
Yeah, I'm in the
that's
room
happened.
because you called
Yeah,
me in. You know.
exactly.
Yeah.
So to your question, I think it's important for the Israeli CEOs, and I think they understand that in a lot of through our experience, we see that they understand that they need to be flexible and they need to teach a bit about what the Israeli culture is about and meet the American culture at a good halfway point. Okay. I always joke with them and I say that in order to be a success, a lot of the Israeli CEOs, they relocate to the US. I say to them, when you relocate to the US, you need to make sure you know all the acronyms. You have to know NBA, NFL, NHL, NAAC, and BBQ. So they go, okay, I got the sports ones because I learned that on the way over, but what's BBQ? I said, that's barbecue. You have to know that you have to you have to know when somebody invites you to a BBQ, they're inviting you to a barbecue. So yeah, the answer is that like many other things, you have to meet it in a good place in the middle. You have to understand the culture. You have to understand the motivation, and you have to manage it properly. Otherwise, it could be a lose-lose situation. If you understand the culture, by the way, this even goes to things like onboarding. How do you onboard your first U.S. Employee, be it VP or enterprise account executive or whatever? You have to understand what is important for them when you onboard them.
Well, that's also an interesting point because it touches on, and this kind of builds on what we were just saying about the handing off the reins from the. Let's, for argument's sake, let's just say there's one founder, even though there's sometimes several founders in a company. But for argument's sake, let's say one founder. When you go from the founder who's been the authoritative voice in the company and its direction and growth, and then, as you mentioned, that key hire in kind of passing the reins over, there's kind of this strange like power shift, right? Because the CEO has been responsible for everything for the first, let's say, 6 months or year, and now they're passing off the reins. So like there's like a tension there, right? So when that comes to onboarding, how does that, do you see any problems there that come up in terms of maybe tensions in, and the VP of sales wanting to go off and move fast and break things, but then the founder still attached to that? What does that look like?
It can look like a challenge. It can look like a challenge. But again, most of these founders are smart people. They understand that they've gone through a process in defining their needs, their challenges. They understand that they're being measured by their investors. They understand the time aspects, and they want to succeed. They have a good product, good technology, and they really want to make it happen. So I think that. It takes time to build trust, and at a certain level, at a certain stage, after a few months, you'll see them feeling more relaxed and handing more and more of the let's call it the leading capabilities in the sales to that VP sales or to that CRO or to that sales executive, whatever the stage might be. So I think there's positive tension there. I mean, you don't hand over the keys to the kingdom on day one. You understand you've gone through a good process. You understand you've hired a talent, but yet to be seen. There's a relationship to be built here. There's trust to be built, and it's a dual mission. It's not an easy mission. If the CEO resides in Israel, then they have to spend time in the U.S. with that person and kind of get to know them. If they reside in the U.S., the same, but it's a bit easier logistically. They have to see the leadership traits. They have to see how this person functions. It takes a bit of time, but I think in most cases we see that they understand that in order for this to be a healthy, successful relationship, which will attain the targets and even maybe overachieve them, there needs to be a trustworthy relationship, and they have to work at it. They have to, even how they introduce a new person into the company. You've hired your first or second salesperson. How do you introduce them to those the other 50, 30, 40, 50 people in your company? How do you get everybody to work behind them. One of the first questions that a candidate will ask us, they'll say, okay, the product seems great potential, but will the people in Tel Aviv support me? Will I come out of a meeting and it's there 11 at night and I need something tomorrow morning? Will I get it? Yes or no? They want to understand that. Again, some CEOs will say, no, you do everything by yourself. It's a DIY, do it yourself. And some will say, yeah, we have a product team that needs to support you. We have a marketing team. But I think it's all about setting expectations. If you set the right expectations, and we help them, listen, our job at a certain in a certain way, our job usually ends after the person starts working. We don't let go so quickly because we want to help them succeed. So we've built tools. We're now building AI tools to help our customers continue the work they've done in with AI tools that we give them. And this of course generates more business from customers and so on and so forth. So I think it's really important to set expectations.
Yeah, no, I agree. But let's kind of address the uncomfortable elephant in the room, which is when expectations aren't met and when things don't go to plan. And for whatever reason, that hire was the wrong one. Now, it's not because of you folks, obviously, and it's not because of the candidate or the founder. Like, there are many reasons why sometimes it's not a right fit. What does that look like? I'm going to take you straight to the wreckage. you say your folks kind of you folks kind of like step out once the hire is complete, once the handshake is done. But that's kind of just the beginning. So, what are some of the problem signs that tend to come up? And then you've also mentioned in my research ahead of this that Israeli founders tend to hold on a bit too long to their hires. So, talk me through what some of the things some of the red flags that may come up, and talk to me why Israeli founders may be hesitant to address them.
So the red flags are usually on the pipeline funnel. What's happening, in the trenches? Is this person generating the right amount of customer meetings, demos, POCs? You can quickly see, but here you have to remember that sometimes quickly means 3 to 6 months. And some founders think quickly is 2 months. And in 2 months, usually you don't generate a funnel and you don't build relationships and customers that kind of, a business doesn't start from 0 to 100 in a month or two. So the first thing I usually say to them is you need to give them time and you need to support them. You need to work together. But you wanted to take us to the wreckage. So if after 3, 4, 5 months, you start seeing that it's not working, I think the best thing to do is call it off. Is not to delay it. There's a lot to be said in this discussion, though, James, about leadership and about mentorship and how you make sure that you're setting. In the American jargon, they have a saying that says, "Let's set it up for success." And one of the responsibilities of a good CEO is to set it up for success. So they need to look at themselves and see if they've done that. But if they've done that and the wreckage is there, and I usually say to them, then pull the ripcord, pull the ejector seat, and let's find somebody else. We give them an insurance umbrella so that we will replace people that haven't been successful over a certain period of time. For the VP CRO level, it's 6 months, which is a nice amount of time to understand if this person is the right person. So it doesn't happen often, but it can happen. This is the people business. Sometimes you start out, you think it's a great fit. Down the road, you understand that something isn't working. I say pull the ejector seat. If you've done everything you can to make it successful and it's not, don't delay, because delaying, you're at the end of the day, it means that you're gonna lose half a year or a year. There's a price to be paid for we see a lot of customers come to us as the second choice. Their first choice was their network, which is limited. It's a glass ceiling. It's very limited. Their first choice could be another company. They come to us a lot of times as a second choice, and the price that they pay for a wrong hire, everybody's trying to put a number on it. My calculation roughly says that the price for a wrong VP is between $1.5 million and $2 million, which encompasses the compensation itself to that person, one or two team members that will probably leave because they're unsatisfied, customers loss, business deal loss, and so on and so forth.
Well,
So
yeah,
it's
there's not just a monetary loss, there's an emotional loss, right? It's not just in numbers because, as you were alluding to, team morale can collapse if there's a high turnover rate, or founders can become filled with self-doubt. It can, they can challenge, they can question their own abilities. And then you're right, that bleeds into business decisions. What's the most expensive mistake, poor choice of words. What's the most expensive mishire you've ever seen? And have you ever had to tell the founder that they were the issue and maybe not the hire? Like, what? Have you ever had any very uncomfortable conversations around that?
listen, we've had uncomfortable conversations, and we've told founders that they did something wrong along the way. But I tend to think that this is a dual responsibility between what we have and what the customer does, or what we deliver and what the customer decides at the end. So I take it as a 50-50 responsibility, although it's difficult to gauge at the, it's very difficult to gauge. You could have a candidate that left after 6 months because he was, we didn't talk about this too much, but because he was undercompensated, because the Israeli CEO, instead of paying him the benchmark plus 10%, he offered him the benchmark minus 5%. And at the time it looked okay, but the candidate started working and got an offer for the benchmark plus 20%. So who's at fault there? Somebody saved 10-15% of an annual compensation, but the candidate left. So we do have sometimes difficult discussions, not often, not too often, but I think the main thing to remember here is that it's really about understanding what type of challenge you have and fitting the right person to that challenge with the right experience and DNA. And if we do that well, I think usually in most cases we see, we've hired VPs in the US. I just checked a few weeks ago that have been with the companies now for one is for 10 years.
Wow.
With the same company, another for 6 years, 4 years. The average tenure of a VP sales in the US, by the way, in New York is 11 months. Um,
That's
that's really
short.
low.
Yeah,
That's
it's
very
very,
short. It's
yeah.
because there's a lot of reasons for that. Some are the more mediocre people that move a lot of times, but but we see people, hanging on and working for 3-4 years, 2-3 years, which is a good time frame in my opinion.
Yeah, that's fair. Does that change state to state? You mentioned that was in New York. Is that different in California or Texas or Florida or any other tech hub area?
I don't think that we see differences in tenure between the states themselves, but you can see that in New York. New York is a hotbed for a lot of things, for business and so they get hunted a lot. And yeah, I would venture to say that in New York, Boston, and of course the West Coast, you see people jumping more. But again, it doesn't mean that they're the right people for you. And most of the Israeli founders, they're looking for people that have been there, done that. So that means they've spent 2, 3, 4 years in their positions, not hoppers.
Yeah, that's fair. And obviously, and the workforce is changing. Because whereas maybe my parents' generation, they'd say get a job at 16 and then you'll retire at that company at 65 with a healthy pension after being there kind of 50 years. Nowadays, it's not like that, especially in the tech world where things are moving around, things are changing, and also the world has been a bit chaotic. We had the pandemic and everything, which obviously 5 years ago, a lot's changed there with how work is looking and how workforces are shaped. What did you think back then, let's say 5 years ago, versus what you think today, and what's changed in your approach to all of this? Whether it's the hiring process or the culture process, or whether they've meshed better or worse. Like, what are you just seeing in terms of a change, if anything?
I think one of the main points that we see is that the candidates are looking for stability.
Mm.
Between the pandemic, financial crisis, world geopolitics, whatever,
And
when we
AI as
interview
well, the looming threat of
and
AI.
AI, of course, I think we see that the candidates are looking for stability. I think that the Israeli startup ecosystem on the technology side is very intriguing to these candidates, but they're not jumping from their current position automatically or without giving it some deep thought. Is this going places? What is the runway for this company? And what is the risk level? And one of the things that we try to help our customers is, how do you mitigate the risk that these people are taking? Because if I'm a successful VP sales at your competitor, then and you want me to join, I mean, okay, so there's a lot of risk here. You're at the beginning of the runway. I'm already at 30,000 feet in my new company. I'm making good money. I'm making good bonuses. So how do I mitigate as a hiring manager, as a founder? How do I get these people to join me? Because everybody tells the story that their product is going to change the world, right? And be a unicorn. I mean, that's chapter and verse of every tech startup believes that when they start out, when they're in round A or even B. So I think what we see is that people are looking for stability. They're looking for the right answers. They're asking a lot of questions before they come into the process. And I think one of the great aspects of my team is that they know how to qualify, but they also know how to sell the opportunity and get the right people into the process. And selling the opportunity is an important factor in headhunting. You have to know how to sell the opportunity.
There's also an aspect of all of this process that we haven't really touched on, which is the life and person outside of the position and the company. That's still a human being, and that person may have a spouse, they may have children, they may have considerations that drive some of these decisions that aren't just changing the world and building up a unicorn. Sometimes they have mortgages to pay, or they have school systems they want to live in or among. Are those types of cultural, human-based aspects, is that something that the Israeli founder considers? Is that something that maybe is neglected a bit? What does that look like? Because as you said, people want stability, because if someone's got a young child or if someone's preparing to get married, they don't want to be messing around with all of that. So how much influence do those things have over the process?
They have a lot of influence, and I think the Israeli founders and together with their HR teams, they have a good understanding that I think if you want to hire somebody, first and foremost, you have to look at the personal aspects. One of my main suggestions is in the hiring process itself, after you've interviewed and the person has gone through a series of interviews and you like them and you see the potential, is take them to lunch or take them to a drink, because in the American culture, when you do that, it's a different discussion. Let them tell you about their spouses and their kids and their colleges and everything else. So that's one aspect, and I think it's recognized as important. The other aspect is you can see it a lot of times in the what we call the American benefits, because in the U.S. there's insurance, and does a round A company give health insurance to the family or just the employee?
Mm.
Um, most of our customers, and I think most of the ecosystem today, recognize that if you'd like to hire um, leading talents, then those benefits are almost carte blanche. They're almost no discussion. So some of these companies, and it's not easy for them because their initial their finances aren't aren't always that strong, and their runway is limited. But yes, if you want to hire the best people, you have to recognize their personal aspects, and the insurance, and the health and everything around that are very important to that. So I think today's founders recognize it as an important. It's almost a non-issue today when we talk compensation. Then we usually say 401k insurance for the family, check. In
Yeah.
most cases, the answer is check.
Yeah, it's also a different world now. These are questions that maybe 20 or 30 years ago there would have been these barriers that are much higher and a bit more maybe abstract for folks that weren't living in a kind of remote workforce. I kind of feel like nowadays people are a lot more attuned to the needs of the worker from their physical location, whether it, even like regardless of whether they work over Slack or Zoom or Teams or whatever it is. I feel like people are a lot more attuned to that generally.
They are, and they're moving forward. One of the things that sometimes we have a discussion around is vacation days, because my suggestion is always in the U.S. there's a trend now, unlimited vacation days, and some of these the HR folks or the Israeli founders, they're unlimited. And I say, yes, he's working remote anyway. He can, what's he going to tell you? He's taking a day off. Yeah, give him unlimited vacation days, and you're giving him trust, and you're building
I
trust
read
by that.
somewhere that employees take fewer days than
Exactly.
their annual entitlement.
Exactly. It increases the working days. You're right. And again, it's a cultural issue, because if that's the trend in the US, one of the things that you need, and they're uniquely important when you hire somebody, is you need to hire somebody in the US that doesn't need to be managed. And that's also something interesting in that respect, that most of the people who are CEOs and founders, they manage day to day, right? They manage their people. They see them, if they're here, they see them in the New York office or whatever. But we tell them, no, you need to hire people that don't need to be managed. And when you give somebody unlimited vacation days, they don't need to be managed. It's a small aspect, but it's an important cultural bump that can be avoided.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then the hope ultimately is that the cultural gaps are met, or merged or meshed, and companies grow and cultures scale and maintain what made them great. Giora, unfortunately, we're approaching the end of our time on today's call. I could talk to you. I have so many more points in front of me, and there are so many interesting aspects of this specific process of a company in its lifespan that I think our readers and viewers and listeners, anyone who catches this anyway they do, will glean a lot of the things you've said today. I want to bring this episode to a close with how I often do, which is with a quickfire round. So I've got some questions here in front of me, and I want you to shoot out, as little thinking as possible, quick response,
Okay.
some of your instinctive answers. So, a builder or a closer, who's harder to find?
Closer.
The candidate who asks about equity on the first call, is that a good sign or a bad sign?
Very good sign, because it means he's interested in long term. Equity is long term.
A US exec asks you, is Israel safe to work with right now? What do you say?
The safest place in the world.
What's the best city to find US sales talent in 2026?
I think it'll be between New York and Boston, depending. But those are
Why
probably
Boston, out of interest?
Boston is the hub, is the cyber hub in the US.
Oh, okay.
A lot of the cyber companies.
I knew it was big on health tech and biotech.
It's big on health tech also, but Boston is considered the cyber hub. By the way, to that question, a lot of times when we talk budgets and how much compensation they want to see, I steer them towards Atlanta, Charlotte, and Austin, because in general they're 10-15% lower compensation rates than New York or Boston. But over time, by the way, these deltas are kind of meshing together, so it's not such a big difference. But yeah, I think New York
especially
and
work from
Boston
home
today.
culture and everyone's remote, so it doesn't really
Exactly.
matter. Cool. Sorry, that was a bit of a tangent. I got two more questions here for you. What's one question every founder should ask in an interview but never does?
That's a good one. I think that that one question is probably, where do you want to be in 3 years from now? I think the founders don't get into that. Where do you want to be 3 years from now down the road? And it's an important question because it shows a mindset of people, how they think, you know? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Especially if that person's asking about equity or not equity.
exactly.
What's one book?
And also, by the way, we want to hire people that want to grow, right? We want to hire people that want to grow. Growth is an indication of something. So I think that's a question that most people don't ask.
Okay, definitely. What's one book or podcast or web series that every founder should consume before hiring in the US?
How to understand the limitations of an interview and upgrade your internal processes. Because remember that most of these companies round AB, they're not a brand; they're just starting out. So how do you get that right when you're still not a brand? Okay, when Google calls you, everybody goes to an interview at Google, right? When you're not a brand, you have to have a really strong process. You have to know how to interview and know how to understand people. So it's something that we can all improve on.
So is there a book that they should read or a podcast they should listen to hone those skills? Is there like a piece of content that you would recommend?
I think 30 minutes with us will help them understand that in the best manner.
Okay. Final question for you, which leads in perfectly. What is the best way for people to follow you, get in touch with you, stay up to date with all the things that you folks are doing and helping companies grow and expand?
Well, I think that we're on the social networks pretty thick, and I think that we're putting out a lot of interesting stuff there that people can build upon and learn. As I mentioned earlier, we're sharing some new AI tools that we've built specifically for our customers. One is a benchmarking tool that is more than 500 downloads up to now, and helps people understand the compensation aspect, which is a heavy aspect. And the best thing to do is just ping me, and we're happy to share our experience, our knowledge, just to help people get their heads straight around which direction they should go in. So we're always open.
Wonderful. I'll make sure to put all those links down at the bottom so people can know
Thank you.
exactly where to find them and continue this conversation after this episode, which I hope they do. Giora, thank you so much today for your time and insights. It was so interesting to learn about that pivotal step that, for me anyway, it was a brand new side of the things that I wasn't so used to hearing. So to get your insights was super interesting. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much, James, for having me. I really enjoyed, and I hope that we can continue this and maybe build it into a series.
Yeah, to be continued for sure.
To be continued.